Hello and welcome to another video. Today I am talking about Jedi Knight and Dark Forces series. In my opinion, these games are a much better basis for Star Wars movie sequels. As you probably already know, Disney decided to drop everything related to Extended Universe. We can only speculate exactly why. The most probable reason is they decided to make a completely new material so they can push their political agenda. There have already been enough videos talking about why Disney and their sequel movies suck. I will instead focus on the story of these games and comment on their gameplay, which means heavy spoilers ahead. The first game, Dark Forces 1, takes place during the original trilogy, which means it is not part of the sequels, but it features Kyle Katarn, the protagonist of the following games, so it's important to mention. Dark Forces 1 is a first-person shooter in a style of the original Doom. Being an old DOS game from the 95, you can't expect much. It's a pixelated mess which feels like you've gone blind the first time you play it. When you get used to the graphics, it can be an enjoyable experience, especially with very good sound effects and character voices. All the games in this series have some adventure elements. To progress forward, you often have to find a key or a switch to unlock the door, and sometimes you need to find an alternative route to bypass the locked door altogether. Due to poor graphics, this can sometimes be frustratingly hard. It can make you run in circles for half an hour looking for a way out. This is actually the hardest feature of the game, since combat is done through auto-aim. You just have to point and shoot. That's it for the gameplay, and now the story. Kyle Katarn is a former Imperial officer turned Republic mercenary. In the first game he mainly goes to various investigation missions. The plot of the first game is mostly unremarkable. First most important point is that Kyle Katarn is the one who steals the plans for the Death Star.
This is too easy. Now to get to my ship.
The rest of the story revolves around investigating Dark Troopers. This turns out to be an experimental exoskeleton, which Kyle Katarn destroys along with its user. In the sequel, Dark Forces 2, things pick up in terms of graphics, gameplay and story. Graphics are significantly better, but it can still be tricky to find your way around. But overall, it's much better than in the first game. The most striking difference is the introduction of live-action cutscenes. They are overall well made, but they are nowhere near movie level. The story is set just after the return of the Jedi movie. Kyle Katarn wants to find out who killed his father, so he meets with an information broker, a droid AT-88.
Don't waste my time, 88. Tell me who killed my father.
Patience. He is a Dark Jedi.
Jedi?
Dark Jedi. He is known as Jarek, and he has great plans for the rebirth of the Empire.
He finds out that it was Jarek, a Dark Jedi, who killed his father, and that the droid works for him. A droid shows him a disc recovered from his father's home. He wants to know what it is, but Kyle won't tell him, and violence ensues. The droid escapes while Kyle fights his thugs. But later, Kyle catches up with him and recovers the disc. The disc can only be decoded by his father's droid, so Kyle goes to his father's house to investigate. After fighting off some raiders who capture the house, Kyle finds the droid and plays the message from his father. The message is his father's last will, in which he leaves him a lightsaber and a map to the Valley of the Jedi.
This message is intended for my son, Kyle Katarn. Kyle, I have left two very important items for you. The first is a map to the Valley of the Jedi, and is embedded in the stone ceiling above this room. The last is a lightsaber that once belonged to a friend and great Jedi, Ron.
The Valley of the Jedi is a mythical place which can infuse people with the power of the Force. Jarek wants this power to restore the Empire and become its new ruler. On his way to the Valley of the Jedi, Katarn fights off Jarek's goons, and in the valley itself they have the final confrontation. Katarn of course wins, and that's the end of the story for this game. Dark Forces 2 is a first-person shooter with adventure and RPG elements. As seen from the story, you start without Jedi powers and without a lightsaber. Unlike the first game, this one features full mouse look, but you still have auto-aim, which makes combat too easy. You can just run around and shoot, but it does provide a certain movie feel to the game. Lightsaber combat is poorly made. Swinging a lightsaber is too slow and inaccurate. Auto-aiming ranged weapons prove to be much more efficient. For that reason, I beat most of the game just by shooting. I use lightsabers only to fight Dark Jedi. After certain game levels, you get 2 force points. You use them to increase the level of certain force powers you unlocked. Basic force powers are jump, pull, speed and seeing. Force jump, as the name implies, lets you jump higher. The problem with this ability is that you get fall damage when you land. You also lose health if you hit your head while jumping. In certain situations, you can easily kill yourself while trying to jump at a certain place. Force pull is mostly useless. It lets you snatch weapons from enemy hands and to pull utility items from further away. Since you can easily auto-aim kill enemies, there is no point in disarming them. Force speed makes you run faster. It can be useful for combat or to pass some timed obstacles. Force seeing is just force-powered night vision. This is very useful because light levels aren't very well balanced in the game, so seeing in dark fixes it. Later in the game you also get protection power, which makes you immune to lightsaber attacks. It's an overpowered ability which fixes nearly useless lightsabers. The problem with this is that you can just stand there, get hit and chop at enemies without any strategy. So in conclusion, Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2 is an overall good game. Lightsaber combat sucks, ranged combat is too easy, force jump is broken. Story is where this game shines. It is very well presented and cutscenes are great. The story revolves around the race to the Valley of the Jedi, which is also a very important element in the Jedi Outcast game. The main enemies are Imperial remnants, which makes sense. The Empire was a massive galactic war machine. After the fall of its leaders, the Emperor and the Darth Vader, you can't expect everyone to just fall in line. It makes sense that some would try to restore it and oppose the New Republic. Imperial Remnant is a faction which consists of Imperial loyalists, former Imperial officers and soldiers, along with the Dark Jedi who oppose the formation of the New Republic. Rebel Alliance is a much smaller force compared to the Empire. It makes sense that they will struggle to consolidate the power of the New Republic, which makes the existence of Imperial Remnant a real threat and a logical continuation to the plot. The next game in line is The Mysteries of the Sith. It's an independent expansion to the Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2. The gameplay and the force powers are mostly the same, but the story is nowhere near as interesting. There are also no live-action cutscenes. The worst thing of all is that stormtroopers don't have their signature voice. They sound like normal people without helmets. The story starts in one of the New Republic outposts. It gets attacked by an Imperial force hidden in a base disguised as an asteroid. The first few missions you play as Kyle Katarn. He helps to repel the invading force. He then infiltrates the base and destroys it. After that, you play as Kyle Katarn's apprentice Mara Jade. You do some generic missions for the New Republic, while Kyle Katarn goes to investigate an ancient Sith temple. When there is no news from him and he is late to return, Mara Jade is concerned and follows him. She finds out that he fell to the dark side at the temple.
Mara, you should not have come.
What's going on, Kyle? When you located the temple, why didn't you report in?
Because when I found the temple, I found a part of me which I couldn't deny. I found a greater source of power than I had ever known.
Instead of fighting him, she decides to turn off her lightsaber. At this point, Kyle Katarn is unable to kill his friend and apprentice, so he returns to the light side. That concludes the story of the Jedi Knight Mysteries of the Sith.
And for that, you will die! can't! No! I won't do this! This is not the way.
Mara Jade is no longer mentioned in the following games. The gameplay is overall boring with generic missions. The only important thing in my opinion is the fact that Kyle Katarn falls to the dark side, which is referenced in later games.